The Blast from Our Past Network.
Hello, and welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pluck out a movie, rewatch it, and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade, and welcome back.
You watched it so many times before, and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, "What?
What am I watching?
Why this? Why this film?"
And this week, it's a very special episode. We are doing the Blast from Our Past Network crossover tribute to Kevin Smith's early works. We are doing Clerks, that came out on Sunday. Mallrats came out on Monday. This drops Tuesday, and tomorrow you will get to hear Chasing Amy, all from the lovely Blast from Our Past Network's people. Blast from Our Past podcast, Podcasting After Dark, me, and the fabulous OCD podcast. It's awesome. It's super fun. I'm super chuffed to be doing this movie. I am so happy I love this movie. And I'm joined today by Flo.
Hi!
Hey, thank you so much for joining me on this network endeavour. I am half a bottle of rosé down already, which is why I'm a bit ecstatic. How far gone are you?
I've just had a tiny little sip of my very diluted glass of... So we're in very different zones right now.
The IMDb breakdown of Dogma 1999, directed by Kevin Smith. An abortion clinic worker with a special heritage is called upon to save the existence of humanity from being negated by two renegade angels trying to exploit a loophole and re-enter heaven. I did just try and read that out loud, and I read that as re-enter, because there's no dash between re and enter. I was like, what the fuck is a re-enter? Do you remember that in the movie? I love this movie. It was genuinely one of my favourite movies as a teenager. I would watch it all the time. I've never seen Chasing Amy. I only watched Clerks out of an obligation as a film student. I've never seen Mallrats. I've never seen J.M. Silent Bob Strike Back. But I've seen Dogma about 100 times. I was obsessed with it. And yeah, I loved it. Have you ever seen Dogma?
I have. I've seen it once when I was a teenager in a religious studies lesson in secondary school. And...
Learning.
Yeah, learning. I did like it, but mainly because I didn't have to do any work for 2 hours.
That's fair.
I think I found the fact that we were supposed to be learning shit and discussing things about it to sort of, I guess what's the word?
Ruin it?
It soiled it.
Yeah, any movie that's used in an educational environment is kind of ruined to a point.
Yeah, and also it was just, I won't get too much into the drama of secondary school, but our religious studies teacher was horrible and used her teaching to basically force her views on a bunch of children, and she was very anti-abortion and she was very strongly viewed on a lot of things, and so I think I was just so suspicious of Dogma the whole time, and actually I was pleasantly surprised to find out it wasn't pushing some horrible viewpoint, but I was suspicious because I was like, why would this lady want us to watch this?
Yeah, that's mental. From the little that I know about your religious education secondary school teacher, because I have heard the tales, this does not seem... This is a very amicable, thoughtful movie discussing religion in a quite positive light, but whilst also 100% pointing out its, flaws, if that's what we want to call them. We want to call them flaws. And that's really bizarre that she would be like, yes, this is
Dogma is an amazing movie.
By Kevin Smith.
Yeah, see, I was expecting her to put on Passion of the Christ or something, but no, she went for Dogma.
No. Nice. I'm really worried. I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm really worried that it's not going to live up to my teenage expectations, or there's going to be a couple things that I'm going to be like, ugh.
Yeah, it's always 10 years later rewatching anything that you loved as a
pre-2000. What was that?
Cringe.
What? It literally opens telling you it's a work of comedic fantasy. So again, I don't know why your religious education
Maybe
teacher
she
was
liked the
like,
bit that says passing judgment is reserved for God and God alone. Remember when you could just turn up to an airport and watch people?
Just chill. I mean, this is like a better version of the opening of Love Actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love these two. I genuinely think they're brilliant.
What, you mean they're like rapport?
Yeah, as actors and as characters. The cast is great. The cast is genuinely great. And the protagonist, Bethany, I love her so much. I've never seen a movie where there's been anyone like her before.
I'd heard before that this was influenced by Good Omens, and you can really tell, like, just references they make where I'm like, oh, I understand that because I've read Good Omens, and otherwise would have no freaking idea what you're talking about.
Stop a couple of angels from entering and thus negating all existence. I hate it when people need it spelled out for them.
She handles him with wonderful grace. I'd be like, look, Buster! If you want me to do something for you, you're going to have to be polite.
I think that's why I love it. She just seems so like, this may as well happen.
Yeah.
Kind of about it.
Sex is a joke in heaven.
The way I understand it, it's mostly a joke down here, too.
Burn.
Take that, humanity.
Someone told me I'd meet you and you'd take me someplace I was supposed to go.
But also, just as a teenager, I'd never watched anything where the protagonist had been A, a woman, and B, a woman over 25.
Do you believe in God?
Again, really underreactive. Just like, I just got attacked by 3 children and saved by the strangest people ever.
I just love her. She's like surrounded by absolute nut jobs. And she's just like, okay, just shut up for 2 seconds.
I can definitely see that. I'm slightly getting the thing of that age-old thing in comedies where the woman is the straight man and just reacts to everyone else being funny. And that's not entirely fair to her because she is funny in a dry way, but occasionally I'm like, oh, I wish she could have some cool one-liners.
Some of the jokes. Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know what I was thinking in that diner, but being that I've decided to go home and not to New Jersey, sorry for the inconvenience and goodbye.
Don't walk in the middle of the road.
She's over it, man.
Where did those 2 assholes go?
Poor Selma Hayek.
Yeah.
She's always stuck in these, like, the first time we meet you,
you'll be doing
you're
a
just
sexy,
body.
sexy dance. But Salma Hayek was in From Dusk Till Dawn, right?
Yeah.
But at least in that, there was a certain power in her thing. I don't know why this feels so
shitty,
and also because she's clearly parodying like a schoolgirl, and she did the little sucky thumb thing. You're like, it's that bit more creepy, and it's probably because this film is trying to be more critical of going to a place for a strip dance. Is that what it's called? Going to a strip club. But yeah, it's probably trying to be critical of that, but it just feels like they've deliberately got a shot of Salma Hayek being sexy while pretending to be a little girl. Also, why does she have
a bindi?
Yeah. Okay, we don't know.
You're a pure soul. But you didn't say God bless you when I sneezed.
Loki?
You're getting off light.
Loki!
I know, I'm coming.
Guess I'm CEO now.
Yeah, that's how that works. If everyone suddenly dies, you just get promoted.
I suggest you take the princess and get as far away as possible. I'll do what I can to get something out of Poopy Boy here.
That was kind of boring.
Yeah, weirdly unthreatening.
Yeah.
But, like, I used to find it an interesting sort of like, oh, what a clever dear, gross, but like, a crucifixion, a demon was made.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. But like in terms of like a fight scene, it was like, I don't care about the people, the red shirts that are sent in. And we defeated it in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, in 2 seconds, but it took so long to walk forwards that there was a whole monologue about it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, maybe that's a comment about the movie, where it's a lot about like ideas.
Yeah, like this was a cool idea, I'll keep it in. I personally don't know if something she finds out from the shit demon is going to matter later. In which case, I guess it would make more sense to keep in.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out.
Because you're pissing people off, that's why.
I still don't understand what his bag is. I thought Azrael was the Angel of Death, but Bartleby, it takes me so long to recall every name. Bartleby said there hadn't been an Angel of Death since Loki. I'm just really confused every time he comes into the story.
Yeah, I think he's just like a demon.
He's a demon?
Yeah, because he's got horns.
Azrael is an angel, isn't he?
Not in this one.
Okay. But this thing, I'm no master of...
But you know enough to be confused with them.
Yeah. I think it's because I hear names and I make assumptions.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a demon.
I guess I'm supposed to talk them out of it or something.
Maybe you're supposed to kill him.
Hush.
I know, right?
Hush. You could have just done a cool little monologue to him and then gone on your merry way.
Shit, man. Look, maybe we should rethink this whole thing. I mean, you heard the guy. He said there are consequences. And Azrael tells us we're marked. Look, man, there is more to this than we thought about.
I was close. You know, I was so close. Just slitting that bitch's throat.
Ooh, it's the shift in character. It's the shift in character.
It's so beautiful. He does it so well.
My God, I've heard a rant like this before.
What did you say?
I've heard a rant like this before.
Don't you fucking do that to me.
You sound like the Morning Star.
You shut your fucking mouth,
You sound like Lucifer, man. You fucking lost it.
Good Omens vibes. Big Good Omens vibes.
I don't understand.
Whoosh. Whoosh. PowerPoint effect.
I don't know about you. I was starting to believe what you were saying. Not believe, but like I was starting to understand what you were saying, where she was quite, not passive, but quite just sort of there to be like, and who's this charming, quirky person who has something to say about religion?
Yeah.
Whereas I like to think that now she's sort of coming into her own a bit.
She's getting more reactions to things, which is really nice.
Yeah.
She also, I was just thinking that she's giving me more of a, in her calm moments, now I'm getting more of a like Margie Gunderson from Fargo vibe, where it's she's so controlled as a person, but it's not necessarily a lack of feeling on her part. Yeah. Which I already sort of got, but I think she gets more opportunities in this second part to show it off.
Yeah, 100%.
Only after everything you've seen, everything you've heard, could you possibly be able to accept the truth?
I don't want this. It's too big.
This is just like when Danny Dyer found out he was related to the Queen.
Whomever has set the renegade angels on their path and is keeping them quite well hidden is also responsible for the Lord's whereabouts.
Alan Rickman's gotten stuck in that pattern of pause, pause, It's like, I'm fucking rapping, man.
Got a lot of exposition to get through.
Maybe we could go talk to this guy, Glick. Maybe we could talk him into canceling the rededication ceremony.
We? Are you saying you're back in, miss? I don't think I can do this anymore.
Well, I've had a lovely sit at this fancy table and I'm now ready. Like, what actually happened that made her come to... I mean, I know she had her big heart-to-heart, but it feels like it's more like she sat in a comfortable chair for a bit.
Yeah,
and was like,
I'm better
okay.
now. I've had something to eat.
Yeah, exactly. She was so hangry and now she's back in the game.
Do I make myself clear? Neither you nor any other influence, short of the hand of God himself, is gonna keep this thing from going off without a hitch.
But I am the hand of God.
Why can't the Megatron just fucking do the fire for him and then...
Yeah, I don't know.
If it's that easy, just convince anyone anyway.
Maybe there's rules that he can only appear to certain people at certain times. I don't know, it does seem pretty fucking important.
This bullshit. These rules making everything difficult.
The plot. Yeah. Getting in the way.
Why can't, in the first 5 minutes of the movie, God descend and go, no, and like just stop everything?
The end.
Officer McGee.
All right, mouthpiece. Let's leave the nice cardinal alone and go for a ride.
I love, like, the classic policeman with no thought process beyond, all right, you, let's move it along. Kids. And his name is Officer McGee.
Escape from hell became my all-consuming reason. So I studied the religions and waited for my opportunity to present itself. Human, have you ever been to hell? I think not. I'd rather not exist than go back to that.
But does he get, like, tortured in hell? Because he's a demon, and he gets this cool suit and gets to come up here with his lackeys, so...
Yeah, he keeps talking about how bad it is, but he has free reign to, like...
Do what he... Like, just stay up here, then, if it's such a big deal.
And study.
Yeah.
You've got the divine heritage going for you. Sanctifying is just one of the French benefits.
Remind me to try that water to wine thing at my next party. How far away is this church?
Banter, banter, banter. Anyway, it's the...
It's the 90s. Anyway, back to the plot.
He's weakened. You're weak. More importantly, he's also a human being. A condition which carries two liabilities. Conscience. Short lifespan. I'm sorry, old friend, but you lost the faith.
You could have at least pushed him through the arch first.
He lost the faith.
I mean, Bartleby would say that, wouldn't he? He's gone cray-cray. If I was going to be pedantic, I'd say he's still not human because he's got a tiny little bit of wing stub.
Yeah, little stub.
How specific do you have to be?
She can rebuild you. She has the technology. She can make you better, stronger, faster.
More fertile.
Yeah.
Can you see that I'm pulling her face?
Yeah. Are you cringed that she's preggers, or cringed that Alan Rickman is like weirdly putting his hand?
It's a bit of everything. It's the weird hand. It's also issues of consent. I know she wanted a baby, but it doesn't exactly work as a perfect ending where it's like, oh, surprise, you've been impregnated by God. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Why don't you name the kid after me?
Rufus.
And thus Rufus Wainwright was born. The 14th Siam. Ooh! Bloopers in the credits.
Yeah.
When does this come out? 90s?
99.
Oh, Alanis Morissette. I didn't recognise her.
Yeah. I think these people are like Kevin Smithy type people that appear in a lot of his movies, which is why they're getting sort of standouts. Boom. So that was Dogma. It could have had 25 minutes chopped off of it.
It felt long.
Yeah, I think it because it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. Because, you know, when they're calling back to the last 5 minutes on Earth, you said you'd fuck me. I was like, Jesus. When he first says that to her in the diner, that feels like days ago, like, for me.
Many a year ago, they agreed that.
So I think you're right. I think all of the Golgotham, because we don't see any sort of repercussions from it other than the Muse figures it out, but by then he's telling us his plan anyway, so, like, she wasn't a major player in that. All of that could have been cut, I think.
Yeah, like, nothing was achieved from that bit.
No.
And it wasn't funny, it wasn't
good
interesting.
It wasn't...
You randomly killed off people that you just established as your ally, so it was like, why even bring them into it? I guess it was a reason to get them out of the strip joint, but that doesn't really seem like a good enough reason to do that big CGI.
They could have just left like they did the Mooby Cafe.
Yeah.
Like, how close was the strip joint to them, like, McDonald's that they were at?
Yeah.
I think it was probably that it was a good idea that he had, and he wanted to keep it in.
Because of the one thing Serendipity said, which was about, like, oh, it's because of the crucifixion and all the bodily fluids that come out, and something has to come from that.
Which, like, is a fun idea.
It's cool, but it's just what a boring way to explain that story. And it's one of those things where it's a cool idea, but if you don't have a good way of executing it, then you kind of have to cut it regardless.
So he wrote Dogma before he wrote Clerks, so it was one of his earliest scripts, but he wanted to wait until he was a more established filmmaker and before he could use real CGI, before he got it up on its feet. And I think you can kind of tell. I think it's riddled with brilliant ideas. I think it's got some great dialogue, and I love a few of the characters. But I, rewatching it now, older, not as a teenager, I'm like, yeah, this could have done with perhaps another draft, or like slim it down, get to the point. It's good.
I think it could be shorter. There were bits where I felt like it, like you said, it could have done with slimming. There was stuff that was interesting, and then I had a really short attention span when I was watching this, and I'm not sure why that was, but there were bits where I was like, I feel like I've got the point, but you're still talking for another 5 minutes. And there were definite moments of, even on the train, I loved all those scenes, but I knew before we saw that they were obviously talking to Bartleby and Loki.
Yeah.
I knew when she was talking to Bartleby that Chris Rock was going to come in, Rufus was going to come in and mess that up, and yet you had so long and it was because the dialogue was good. But I mean, I know there's that whole Edgar Wright thing of, like, movies now are just talking and sounds, and there's, like, nothing more to comedy than that. And even though I don't think that's true for Dogma, because there were some visual gags, it did feel like, oh, these are funny lines though, so we have to keep the scene, even though you're like, but nothing's happening. You're just...
And not even like... Well, you could argue that it's sort of developing character, but it's quite late into the movie.
And it's building as well. Like, I won't say it's not building tension when you know something like that's going to happen. There were just bits where I felt like...
No,
that's
100%.
more cool dialogue that you've kept when actually I, as the viewer, feel like I got it now and I'm ready to go to the next place.
I think the train's an interesting one to pull out, because I think you're right. I think it's, even though you're sort of like, you're like, oh, we all know what's going to happen here, I think it's really well played out. I think it suffers mainly because the rest of the movie is so padded out and not so well paced and well written and interesting and well acted. Like, I love watching Ben Affleck's face, and I love watching her do her little understated monologues where she talks about being so angry but she says it so calm. Just really simple little acting techniques that for some reason every time I'm just like, what a great choice.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. But yeah, and I think we would have forgiven it a bit more if other parts of the movie hadn't been so padded and unnecessary. Like, you're right, it took me several viewings to, like, truly, honestly, genuinely understand the, like, whole plot of this movie. The
like,
loophole,
every bit of it.
Who sent it to them, who Azrael is and why he's doing it. The ski ball stuff at the beginning where they put him in the coma, getting him out of the coma, and why he can't, like, all of the stuff. It genuinely took me a few viewings before I was like, right, I think I understand Dogma now. Like, I think I'm on board. I mean, how easy was it for you to follow?
I felt like I understood it, although I'm sure it's kind of like Inception, where you feel you get it, and then when you watch it a second time, you're like, oh no, wait, I missed that bit, etc., etc. But I felt the overarching plot I got. There were bits where I was like, I don't agree with that, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel that would work, actually, so I think you're wrong. But in general, I felt I definitely got the loophole, and I got it's all coming round, and like, so long as we're free of sin, and when we die, we can go to heaven, and that creates a loophole. It was Azrael that really confused me.
Yeah, because then they start throwing in the fact that he was a muse that didn't take sides in the all-out war in heaven, and you're like, wait, I thought he was a demon, and then he is a demon, but like, he has free reign, and he's able to go up to Earth and stay there for a while, and he has magic powers that can cloak the angels, and he's able to study and learn the different dogmas of religions, but he's talking about how fucking awful hell is, so why would he have freedom to do what he
why
wants?
is he allowed to go up to Earth and have his own little like camaraderie with a bunch of hockey players if hell is everything he says it is? And
to the point where he would rather be wiped out of existence than go back there.
And he gave me, like, it was interesting because I said to you before that I have heard that Dogma has like some story points taken from Good Omens, and I'd heard that Neil Gaiman was thanked in the credits, although I didn't actually notice it when I was watching them through, but that's half because I was talking to you, I think. I'll have to check that later.
Yeah, do.
But I had heard that Good Omens was credited in the Dogma credits. And
that's really interesting.
I'm not surprised by that, because there's a lot of things where it's not necessarily that it doesn't already exist, because obviously God Omens
same thing.
Good Omens takes heavily from, all forms of religion, but particularly Christianity. But it meant that there were points where I was like, this would make more sense if you were dealing with it in a Good Omens way, and particularly Azrael did that for me, whereas he had a kind of Crowley type thing of, famously in Good Omens, Crowley's character type is, he didn't mean to fall from heaven, he just hung around with the wrong kind of people, and it describes him as, rather than falling, having sauntered vaguely downwards, and that was enough to have made him a demon. And then his response to that is that he very much enjoys Earth and everything about Earth, and it's not about him necessarily regretting being separate from God, it's about him not wanting to be a part of hell. Azrael seems to have that same freedom, and I know we don't exist in the same universe as Good Omens, which is a little more I don't know, blasé, pithy, like just cool about like eternal damnation and stuff. But Azrael seems really messed up by that, even though he's had the same sort of story thing, and he would rather die than exist as a demon in hell, even though it would seem that he has free will and things he can do.
Like, I mean, maybe we missed it, and maybe I missed it the 22 million times that I watched this movie, that he...
There might be more explanation, like...
Yeah, that I missed, that he's like, I had to escape, nobody knows I think he does say at one point, like, nobody knows I'm up here. Yeah. I've managed to, like, sneak out for a bit. But then also, are we meant to believe that he's, like, keeping religious texts under cobblestones in his prison cell and, like, studying at night to wait for a loophole?
Yeah, and right, and if Azrael as a demon is suffering in hell, then who's doing that? Like, is it all Lucifer? Because everyone's a fallen angel in hell, right?
And also Lucifer sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, so who's doing the torturing? Like, where is the suffering coming from?
Where is the bad? Did God invent hell to just keep his, like,
and just made it almost like a robot doing bad things to people?
Yeah, like, how does hell function? And I mean, I think they pointedly didn't show any, like, they could have easily shown us flashbacks of wars and flashbacks of times in heaven and hell, but then it would
I'm glad that there's no visual to what hell is, there's no visual to what heaven is. I thought that was good. It is
confusing from listening to the characters. I think you make a good point comparing it to Good Omens. I mean, obviously it's very heavily taken from, whereas Good Omens focuses on the Antichrist, this focuses on Jesus's
Spawn, relatives, heirs.
But you're right, like, the sort of kicked out angels and demons in Good Omens are just sort of getting on with their life, and they're sort of called into this higher issue because of their love for Earth, and that's very sweet and a great story. Whereas
I think Earth is a punishment within the world of Dogma. It's not in the world of Good Omens. That it's interesting though, because they really still touch upon the same thing of like, angels and demons don't have free will. They are predisposed to behave in the way that, in the places that they exist. And humans do have free will, and they have complete control over how they react to things. And Dogma does that as well, but that's not like, it's a source of jealousy for Bartleby rather than a source of like celebration for a character like Crowley in Good Omens, where it's like, how wonderful that we all just can do whatever we want here.
Yeah, it's such a good point, because Bartleby has... They have no job on Earth. They weren't sent to Wisconsin to keep an eye on anything, or they could they live as humans, and yet...
But then, I agree, but then I guess again, I've only seen it twice, and if I'm honest, I probably still don't fully get it, but I did like that bit from Bartleby, where it was like that sort of different branch, where he's like, why was I created as someone who's so unforgivable for doing one wrong thing, when these people get to do all sorts of wrong things, and they can still be forgiven? And that was really interesting, and...
I love, as I say, Dogma has so many little speeches in it that I just find absolutely fascinating, and really, as an actor, like, really, really, like, juicy. Like, his whole little monologue about free will and humanity versus the angels, and then Matt Damon comes in with, like, you sound like the Morning Star, you sound like Lucifer, man, you fucking lost it. I just love it so much. And yeah, I really like that as a difference to Good Omens, where, I mean, as you say, it's a very obvious sort of like, and now here comes the antagonist.
Yeah, I'm not making fun of it, but I just was like, the moment you meet them, you're like, okay, Loki's the killer, Bartleby's the calm one. I guarantee by the end...
switcheroo.
Yeah, there's going to be a little switcheroo, because Bartleby has to have a breakdown. He can't remain as this totally cool, calm guy for the whole thing and have no character development.
Literally. I think things like the Mooby massacre, which I've now dubbed it, it was one of my favourite scenes when I was a teenager. I used to like rewatch it on its own all the time. I really loved the craftsmanship of the scene, the way it played out. Watching it now, it's not as like incredible filmmaking as I used to like.
What scene do you mean? Sorry,
when they crash the like board meeting and kill everyone.
Was there not discussion at the beginning where he claimed that he'd made up that cow, or did I totally misunderstand something he was saying?
Oh no, he was just giving you the backstory of the cow. It was made by a kindergarten teacher, and then it was like bought out by a company.
See, I think I just misheard him. So
Mickey Mouse.
I was like, oh, Loki created this cow, like image, and then they stole it from him, and I was like, that's never come up. But okay, that was just me mishearing something.
Yeah.
Good to know.
It's complicated. And it's funny, that's the funny thing about Dogma. They sort of plant all of these different things throughout that then they call back to. But if you weren't full on paying attention to every second of the movie...
And like reading it on subtitles, I would say. Because you can hear people say stuff and it won't go in, or at least for me. If you were reading something on subtitles, maybe you would get Dogma more on the first time.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think because there's a lot of like biblical language as well, and like all of these different places that they refer to in like Jerusalem and
Sodom and Gomorrah and all that kind of thing.
All of these things, and this is the thing as well. I think you have to have a vague understanding of like Christianity to get a lot of the jokes, and B, like...
And also more than Christianity.
Possibly that was what Kevin Smith was doing. Because the whole drive of this movie is that instead of having a stone concrete religion, you should have a bunch of good ideas that can change and evolve as the world does.
It's interesting on that front, because there were moments where I really got that it was trying to do that, but overall, was it not saying that Christianity was correct? Not correct, but
no, I got this time around more than ever. Because I used to be like, oh my god, what a great message, and like they started saying they're like, oh, I have a good idea, they can constantly change, and I was like, yes. And as you say, by the time we got to the end of the movie, I was like, wait, God exists, is infallible, is 100% right.
Yeah, it's peaceful in a very Christian sense.
New Testament way.
Jesus Christ exists and is the Son of God. So it is saying Christianity is correct.
Canon.
It's still
canon Christianity.
Has a few things in there where it's like, I mean, that in itself is not, it's a fictional film, and it's based in a world where Christianity is the correct religion and not necessarily the only thing that makes you a moral person, but it's a world where like, oh, Jesus Christ existed and was the Son of God. And we have to accept that in order for the film to make sense.
And I think that's why he puts the disclaimer at the front, to be like,
I'm trying to be funny.
I understand that other religions exist, and I am by no means discounting them, but for this movie to work, I need you to just be like, Christianity is the one religion.
Yeah, it's like a sci-fi where we accept that that's the thing that happened.
Yeah,
and in fairness, Good Omens has that same sort of thing where it's like, hello, in order to prologue, in order for this book to make sense, we need to sort of get it, like, we're not really going to discuss Jesus, but we have to at least get you to accept that, like, God made the earth 4,000 years ago, and that's where we're at.
That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not as I think in my head I thought it was quite a multicultural film where it's really by that I don't mean diversity in cast, I mean like what it's talking about with religion, where it's more Christianity based than I remembered it was.
Yeah,
but it's an interesting take on Christianity with loopholes.
Yeah. With loopholes. It's funny, I was going to call it a fun little movie, but on this rewatch I was really like, God, no, you really have to like pay attention.
Yeah.
Like, just because I used to stick it on in the background a lot because I knew it inside out, like watching it this time and knowing that you'd only seen it once like 20 years ago, I was like, fuck,
occasionally,
like, I can't talk over any of this.
Occasionally I'd make comments to you and I could see the panic in your eyes as you were like, she's missing vital information. I was like, I don't care, I've got to talk.
I know, and I really tried not to, because I was like, that's a true and funny point, but you need to hear what Seema Hayek is going to say, because otherwise the last like 15 minutes is not going to make any fucking sense. Which is, you know, kind of the point of a movie, but also frustrating, because you, like, you really do have to be, like, every single word, and it's so wordy. And, like, I love that. I love movies that are basically should be plays.
Yeah.
And I know there's, like, a whole thing where, like, that show don't tell, but I'm like, no, tell me if you're funny. And like,
yeah, and
it's
at points felt a bit Tarantino-y, at points felt like other great movies where it's very dialogue based and witty. Sometimes it was too fast. It kind of like, it's the same problem I had with Juno, and I know Juno is not a complex plot, but sometimes I'd be like, the fuck did you just say? You just rattled off words at me, and I'm sure they were really witty, but like it was so fast and I don't understand half of what you're saying because it's like a reference.
Oh god, the references in this movie. I watched this first time when I was like 13, maybe, and I'd only really watched the same few movies my whole life up until that point. So for years, I was like, don't know about Con Air, don't know who John Hughes is. Like, and then she would be like 16 Candles John Hughes, and I used to be like, I wonder what that means. Like,
that's so funny to me, because when I was watching it, I was like, this film is made up of references Emily would like, because now I'm like, Emily likes John Hughes, Emily likes, what was the thing that happened later? They referenced something that I was like, that's for Emily.
Home
Alone.
They did. Con Air, the piano. just like
there was another
everything that
one,
came
and I won't be
out.
able to think of it now, but there was one where I was like, oh, that's a reference for Emily. It's like a little Emily reference.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that I've gone on to now understand every single reference that they make. Wax on, wax off. Just absolutely everything. But watching it as a very young teenager, I don't know what. I think that's why I was so obsessed with the sort of speeches and the characters, because it was the only thing I understood. Because like everything else, I was like, don't get that, don't know what they mean by that.
What?
That's cool.
What?
Is that an American thing? I don't know. Like skee ball, I was like, what the fuck, skee ball? I don't know. I
still didn't know
so
what
every
ski.
time
Like
they would say
in
it-
my head, I'm imagining foosball, but I'm guessing it's something different.
I mean, I still don't really know, but in my head, I've sort of
Or
put
air
it
hockey?
to like a sort of fairground attraction-y type sport.
Should we Google
thing.
it now? What's
We
skee
should
ball?
probably Google
Skee
it. What
ball.
the fuck is skee
Oh
ball?
fucking hell! It's just that game where you throw a ball at a hole.
What?
It's that one that's at like rubbish fairs where it's like you throw it.
I love that game.
All right, well there you go. You are God. You can relate.
Hey.
But I thought skee ball was more complex than that. My mistake.
Yeah, I thought it was like, because it's the opening shot has skee ball on the back wall, and then the guys in rollerblades with hockey sticks come over. I always thought skee ball was that sort of thing. But yeah, like the opening of the movie, you see God looking out.
Yeah, I did get
yeah.
that for some reason, and maybe it's from I'm assuming it's from seeing it before, but I was like, that's God. And I don't know if it's because 20 million films since then have like referenced that the old man humming nicely to himself looking out at the wonder of the world is
either
God
or Santa Claus.
Yeah, like I was like, well, that's a mystical man. This is Dogma. It must be God. And so there was no surprise with that bit on my. But in fairness, I have seen this twice. It's just that one of them was a very long time ago.
And I think it's a valid assumption to make, and I think you're not expected to not guess that. I just think you're expected to sort of forget it, because did you spend the whole movie being like, for fuck's sake, just go and get that guy out of his coma? Did you actually?
Not for fuck's sake, go get him out. But I was like, when is that man coming back? Because there was so much discussion where I was like, I'm pretty sure I know where God is, but I don't like. And again, that was in a very. It wasn't like. Maybe actually I've forgotten this. Did the priest say that he was in New Jersey?
No, I don't think so. He, because we don't find out that God is missing until an hour and 10 minutes into this movie. So then they're like, God's missing, we don't know where he is. He goes to play skee ball.
Yeah.
But it could be anywhere. But we know at the beginning in the church
that it
scene,
said
they're like,
ball.
John Doe, coma person.
I wasn't following. It's not like every time they mentioned him, I was like, "Oh yeah, God." But the very first scene, I was like, "That's God," and he's gotten beaten up and stuff. And then, whenever there was peril related to where God was, I was like, "At some point, they're gonna bring in this old dude." But I wasn't. Oh, there's a moth in my room. Sorry, but I was like, "They're gonna bring in this old dude." Sorry, I was trying to say it in the exact same tone I did last time. I tried once. I was like, oh, they're going to bring in this old dude. But it took such a long time for that to happen that I sort of doubted that was the solution. And then it finally happened.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to shut my window. 2 seconds. So that more of you little bitches can't come in.
And if you're waiting for them to bring God back and they still not here, and it's like, Bartleby's about to enter the church, and you're like, for the love of God, like, where is he?
For the love of God, where is she? Yeah. There was a point where we paused about an hour and 18 minutes in for me to go to the loo and get some wine, and I was like, when we paused it, the cursor looked like it was in the middle of the screen, and I was like, are you kidding me? Because everything has already happened, and what else can there be apart from they've got to go to the church?
I thought exactly the same thing. It was at 1:18 and it still had like an hour to go, and I was like, my God.
And how?
Like,
because they'd covered so much, and I do struggle to think what they covered in that last hour, because obviously there was the finale, but the finale didn't take an hour. There was that Azrael came in to explain his bit. Was that necessary?
No, but I think that was it. That's what dragged it out. Azrael keeping them there, killing Azrael, then going to the church, going to see the cardinal, having the opening, having them come in, have the massacre. Like, now I'm thinking about it, I can remember what happened, but a lot of it wasn't necessary at all.
So let me ask you, Emily, as someone who's seen the film many a time, what does the ending mean? What happened to Loki and Bartleby?
You know, I've never thought about it until this viewing, and as I was watching it, I was like, where are they? Like, where are they now? Like, are they ceased to exist? Because she doesn't do anything to them that seems particularly different. She literally blows Bartleby's head up.
Yeah, well, she acknowledges him as a human, I guess I would take it as. She gets everyone who's not dead or magical of God to cover their ears, and he doesn't, and she kills him with her voice, which means he was a human.
Yeah.
What is that? He says thank you. So is she taking him to heaven? But it's like she's not infallible because he dies as a human, so goes to heaven, and she allows that to happen. But then is that not exactly the same as what his plan was? What the hell?
Yeah.
Well, like, and I don't...
Where's Matt Damon? Is he in hell?
Hell, presumably, because they say he didn't go through the arch. But then, if you become human, are your sins as an angel... Like, are you sinning when you're an angel? Because you don't even have free will.
Yeah.
So maybe he goes to heaven too, but he doesn't act like he goes to heaven. It's an unwilling death.
Yeah, and Bartleby wouldn't have killed him if he thought he was going to go to heaven.
Or would he have?
Surely, because he was like, you lost the faith.
He says you lost the faith, but is it actually...
He tells him before.
And, like, I could have, if he hadn't said that, taken it as an act of kindness. He's like, you're a human. I'm still doing my thing. You're trying to stand up to me. Let me kill you now. Like, you can have peace. But he says you lost the faith. But no, he fucking didn't. Like, everything he said... Everything Loki says, past the point where Bartleby does his little character switch, it's within biblical beliefs. He's still trying to do the right, not necessarily the right thing, but he's anti-murdering everyone.
Yeah.
What does you lost the faith mean?
Like, which faith?
In me? Like, is that what he means?
Because Bartleby has no faith in God anymore, or faith in angels as a race, no faith in humanity. So what does he have faith in? Faith is such an odd choice of word.
Well, is Bartleby saying you lost faith in me? Like, I was the person you were following, and now I slay you as your new god. I mean, it's all a bit... Again...
And as I was watching it, I was like, is it Cain and Abel-y? Or, like, is it... I don't... Like, am I meant to be seeing other biblical references here? Or are we just killing Matt Damon because his time's up and he needs to go back to his trailer? Because it did feel... You don't see anything of him after that. You don't know where his body goes. You don't know where his soul goes. Does he have a soul? He's human now, so in theory he does. So in theory he's going to hell.
It felt really weird because Bartleby has I would say, a closure moment. You see that he's glad with the choice that's happening, which suggests he's going to heaven, but even if he's not, he's, like, relieved.
Yeah, and he's forgiven and satisfied.
Yeah. Loki doesn't get that, and again, I cannot get over that his name is Loki, and that's not...
I know, it's really weird.
I'm not saying, because I don't think Bartleby is an angel's name either, but Loki is really specifically not an angel's name. It's a Norse god name, so it's just strange that they...
I think it doesn't help that we're in a post Avengers world.
It doesn't help, but you know me, Emily, and I have told you many a time how much I'm interested in Norse mythology. I've tried to read you things many a time. But like, I just love, those stories are so silly, and so it's so specific. I mean, I think, although I'm not sure, because as you said, we're in a post-Avengers world where everything's changed, but I think people even before that knew that Loki was like a sort of mischievous god type thing, right? Or maybe not.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think as a kid, I didn't really... They were always just Matt Damon and Ben Affleck to me. Their names were meaningless. Everyone's name was meaningless, ultimately, in this movie, which is a shame. And it's sort of similar to Quentin Tarantino characters, where I'm like, they could be called literally anything, and it's cute that they're called that, but it doesn't matter, because I will never refer to them as that. I will always refer to them as Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction. And
I feel like even Quentin Tarantino does that, where you'll read his scripts and he'll write the names, and then he'll write in brackets, woman. Tim Roth. This is written for Tim Roth. You're like, so it doesn't matter that his name is Pumpkin or whatever.
yeah, exactly. And that's how I've always felt. So it's never really been distracting before, but I wonder if it was a choice, or if it was just a mistake, or if it was just... He was whatever, that sounds kind of goddish.
Yeah, and it could be that,
godlike names into Google.
They could be names that they've chosen that sound kind of biblical, but aren't, because you can't have a biblical name when you're on Earth. Or they could be that he didn't want to try and, besmirch or bless the name of a established biblical character.
Yeah.
So there's many reasons it could happen. It stood out to me that his name was Loki, because I only really know that. Well, I know it from Avengers Now, and before that I know it from a Norse mythology, where it doesn't fit. And I just was interested as to what that was trying to say, because part of me thought maybe they're trying to be like, oh, he influenced Norse mythology, he influenced Norse understanding of the gods, but then you're like, but Bartleby's got nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. It's most likely that Kevin Smith was like, fucking no, it's like a Bible-y type name without pissing the Catholics off by taking their names in vain. And he just done fucked up because he picked one of the most famous non-Catholic religious icons. It's possibly like me when I was 11 being like, I'm going to name her Selena for the moon. And she's going to be pale and have big eyes.
Like the moon.
Ta-da! Which is, fine.
Yeah, fine. I love that you had to explain to me, he's a demon because he has horns, and I was like, no, Emily.
His name.
It can't be that simple, because his name lines up with the angel of death in certain Islamic and Jewish texts. And
I think I was expecting to find it... I could remember the character of Jay, and I wasn't as offended by him as I thought I was going to be now that I'm grown up and all self-proclaimed feminist and stuff, because they manage a lot of the time, not always, to ride a quite understanding tongue-in-cheek line of we know these people are idiots, we are good people who are writing this.
It's so obvious throughout the whole thing that every line they give him is intended to be making fun of that viewpoint. So it's not like there's, a sort of... It's not like one of those things where it creates a sort of BoJack Horseman type hero, where he says terrible things, but he's the hero, and people end up thinking you're supposed to like what he's saying. Yeah. Jay is so obviously repugnant in that sense. He's like a good boy deep down, but he has all these viewpoints and shit he comes out with that is meant to be silly. I think they're really good at genuinely, not just in the way where some shows do it, where it's it's supposed to be funny that they're a racist. It's genuinely, very clearly oh, he's saying a really sexist thing, but then we're going to do a pause afterwards to demonstrate how embarrassing that is that he said that, and how shit of a viewpoint it is.
Yeah. At points it got a little tiresome.
Yeah.
But I think that again ties in with how long the movie was, and I was like, I don't need him to make another fucking pussy joke. Can we please just save humanity now?
And there was occasional points I didn't like that the gotcha at him was, oh, you think about men when you masturbate. And it was like, that's kind of the same thing back at him, and yet it wasn't given the same, even though I do believe that the film it's LGBT friendly in the sense that, like, it has a very clear, you know, in the way that Bartleby disowns that guy as a human because he disowned his gay son, and it says that, like, it's a really clearly, that is not Christian justice, that is not a kind thing to do, that is not the work of a good person. But
and
it's
there's
got
a lot of male friendships that are mistaken, but they're never offended to be mistaken again.
You know, like with Bartleby and Loki, it's not like a ew, no, it's just like, oh no, we're not together because we're like holy angels or unholy angels, I guess.
Friends.
But it does still fall into that thing sometimes where even despite all those good strides, it has jokes where it's like, ha ha ha, he thinks about men when he masturbates. And I know that's partly just because his character is so pussy driven. Hetero. But I still didn't find that particular stuff very funny because it just felt kind of dated.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, it is a film from 1999, and to be fair to it, it has very few casualties of being a product of the 90s. I've seen a lot worse and a lot more dated, awful stuff in other movies.
Agreed.
I think we said it at the time. I think they could have given something else for Salma Hayek to do. I don't know why she was in the movie, to be fair.
Yeah.
What did she do?
I'm not sure.
She did
like,
nothing.
I'd love to interview someone on what the thought process of that was, because I understand that serendipity and like a muse is kind of in many ways a sort of sexual or beautiful creature that inspires an artist, but what is she inspiring with that? And it just felt like an excuse to have a shot in a I don't know why I'm struggling so hard to think of what a strip joint. I keep being like sex dungeon, strip dance, lap boogie in a strip joint. There we go.
The whole, there's absolutely no reason for it to be there. There's no reason for that gang to be there. There's no reason for us to go there in the first place.
Yeah, there's no narrative reason for it either. It's not like she makes a point about, oh, I do this in order to inspire something. I don't know what the hell their reasoning would be. But it's just her, again, being introduced in a movie in a really weird sexual way that then she never even, like, at least in From Dusk Till Dawn, she gets the power back. And even though it's filmed in a very gratuitous way and Quentin Tarantino gets his excuse to get foot stuff in, it still felt like there was shots of it where it was giving her a character moment, like she was doing something for a reason, and then by the end of the scene she has control, whereas this was really like, I just want to see her do a little dance around a pole, and I just didn't get it. It just felt against the spirit of the film, and maybe someone will have some inside information that like explains it more, but it felt to me not a good enough reason to introduce one of a few female characters in it, and I guess apart from God, the only like holy female character, and God doesn't count. I know, like,
no, God doesn't count. They even
this
say
isn't a thing against.
They don't have a gender.
Yeah, sorry. God doesn't count because they don't have a gender, and they also. And this isn't against Dogma, because I don't think Dogma's been misogynistic or anything, but movies that posit that God is a woman, but then have an entirely male cast, and I'm not talking about any particular movie, I can't even think of one right now, but you know that thing where it's like every angel, every important character you meet is like male, kind of like the Good Omens TV show, I guess. I don't know. I haven't really thought it through that much. But, like, you can't go, oh, God is a woman, and that absolves everything, because that's like the base tier of like, oh, this like non-talking character that it doesn't really truly matter, but it's like a statement because it's God.
Yeah.
That one's a woman.
There you go. That allows us
There
to
you go.
fill the rest of the cast with men. It's very true, and I think because I used to love Bethany so much, and I'd never seen a woman over 25 that like had been through stuff be the protagonist and act in the way that she acted and talked in the way that she talked. I was fascinated with her, and I thought she was wonderful. Still believe all of those things, but this time it was very glaringly obvious that she and Serendipity are the only females in this movie. As you say, God does not count, and Salma Hayek has literally fuck all to do. She literally
I didn't really get what her point was, and I didn't understand what, like, why can't she just be another angel come along to do something? Like, why is she the strip joint Serendipity?
I wonder if Kevin Smith wrote a bunch of interesting speeches about ideas he had about the Christian faith, and whether he wanted to make a point about gender in the Bible, and he felt the best way to do that is to have a woman say it, because you know it's not our place to be like, oh, you know, even though I'm writing it as a man, I feel like it needs to be delivered as a woman because it's about gender. So I need a female character in here who's not Bethany
and who's not within the same cabal of people who are parroting the stuff of God. Like, it needs to be a character who is holy but not an angel.
Yeah. So it makes sense in that sense, but it really is only to put those points in there to be like, hey, have you ever noticed how sexist the Bible is? Because also, yes, I have.
Yeah.
That's not a revelation.
Yeah.
And once
I kind of, I don't know, I like that he's not trying to be like, holy shit, people, have you read the Bible? It's really sexist, because I think he knows we know. But, yeah, it's one of just those things where it's like, like you said, I agree. She seems like she's created to say points, but what is her actual character about?
I love everything she has to say. I love the way she says it. I love her outfit. I love her hair. Like, I really loved her. Other than all that cool shit that I like to quote a lot, she does fuck all. She really does nothing.
Yeah, she's kind of a mouthpiece, isn't she? And I'm glad she's in it, but it does feel like there might have been some better setup or better use of her.
I'd be interested to see a remake. Not a remake, because I don't think you can remake something that's so clearly done by like an auteur. But to take these ideas and these characters, and even the same actors, and just redo it slightly, just twinge it.
Just a few small tweaks.
Just make it that little bit better and pop it out again. Yeah, that's my feedback, Kevin. You're welcome. Couple more women thrown in there.
Yeah, more characters of diversity again. Only 2, as far as I can remember, diverse characters, and they don't even get the thing of, oh, there's God is also diverse, because she or they are not. You've only got Chris Rock and Salma Hayek, as far as I can think of non-white characters, and then you've got the gang of unnamed characters who get killed by a shit demon, and I didn't love it, because I was like, oh, good, and then I was like, oh, I see.
Yeah, just the severe lack of women, and there doesn't seem to be any real reason as to why, other than like, oh, the Bible is sexist, but God herself is a woman sometimes, because at the beginning of the movie she's a man, and then at the end of the movie she's a woman.
Yeah,
so they're not
and why
even
does Alan
making a
Rickman?
point.
I didn't understand the point of that bit when she starts saying, "Oh, God, her, she," he starts doing the same, but in a sarcastic tone. So, does she appear as a woman at the end because that's Bethany's perception by that point? Because Alan Rickman seems to be really like, not scathing, but like, oh, okay, we're doing the different pronouns, are we? And
yeah, it's an odd choice.
Yeah.
And as I say at the beginning of the movie, she's an old man.
Yeah.
So she's kind of whatever she wants to be, which Rufus does follow up with. But I remember as a teenager, it was a huge thing in my school where like for some reason everyone had seen Dogma, and it was such a thing that we were all like, God is a woman, God is a woman.
And then wasn't there that like dance song that come out that went, God is a girl, da 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 da, da, and that was supposed to be like feminist and shit, when it was just like a generic.
That was our wave of feminism.
Yeah,
trying to
just fucking claiming like powerful standard fatherly roles and being like, that's us, that's me now, that's it, I'm represented. But like, yes, with women, but also with diversity, where I don't think we saw any angels that were non-white.
Yeah.
Or demons, like that kind of. There seemed to be. I don't know, if I was going to go deep into what the casting told me in the world of Dogma, when they tell me that angels existed and demons existed before humans, it almost seemed like they were like, oh, well, male and white was the default, and then there was diversity. And I'm not saying that's what they were saying, but I think you probably have to think when you're casting angels to be like, do I want to suggest that like it's a diverse culture of angels, or at least all skin tones, you know? So I just feel like, anything you cast where you are casting the original creations, you do have to think like, are you suggesting that God started with a default setting? And if so, carefully fucking think about what you're saying. Default setting of not human, but humanity is. What was the template where the angels built off? Or you should probably make it diverse, just because that makes sense in terms of like, presumably God has no judgment over skin color or gender or anything like that.
When you throw in Chris Rock's little speech at the McDonald's where he's like, I was purposefully left out of the Bible because I was black as well, even though that's very clearly sort of Chris Rock doing a skit.
How did you feel about that? Because I was a little confused, because what was really strange was that, as far as I can recall, there wasn't much discussion about how the Bible is based in places that don't have generically white people in it. Why are they, there's a lot of discussion now about how Jesus is perceived as white, when surely everyone within the Bible probably would have been Middle Eastern, and I know there was more travel between countries in those days than we realise now, so probably other races as well. But like, not white, and so
never white.
It was strange to me that his speech was so specific to, I guess, American Christianity, modern religion.
Yeah, American perceivement, that's not a word, it is now, of the Bible and a white Jesus.
Yeah. And I found that bit a little hard to believe, just because I was like, what do you mean he was the only black one? Like, were the others white? That doesn't make any sense. And he calls them white.
The way he was like, they've got 12 other white dudes to choose from, referring to all of the disciples. Like, this was the first time that I turned around and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, what? And that, it felt a little bit like, I guess that was just a sort of 99 style of, like, it was being progressive by discussing that there's not black people in the Bible, but also it was making assumptions to do with people's races in the Bible. And it was just, I saw the point it was making, and I didn't find it, like, it wasn't offensive. It wasn't, trying to posit something racist, but it did feel in 2020 like, what do you mean, like 12 other white boys? Like, surely we're at the point now where we all agree they weren't white, right?
It's interesting coming at it now. I think they were going from a worldview of America in the 1990s, and I think the casting would have been driven by that as well. Like, back in the day when your movie would have one woman and she would be played by, like, no offense to these people, but like Charlize Theron or Jennifer Aniston. Yeah. And like, that was it. And like, everyone else was a white guy, and you might get one other diverse person. So the fact that this movie had two women and two diverse people could be argued as progressive,
and discussed diversity, at least. Like, even if not everything it said, I was like, oh, that doesn't really work in current understandings. And in fairness, I'm talking about our current understandings of like our limited knowledge of the Bible, whereas I'm sure there are still people who are like, what do you mean, like they were white or whatever because of biblical art.
From what every child in a nativity play takes their donkey to fucking Bethlehem, and we know where Bethlehem is geographically. It is fascinating. Like, can we argue that something like Dogma or Life of Brian has been made today? Is there anything like that? Does anyone really make religious commentary in mainstream movies anymore? There's no such thing as a real controversial mainstream movie. And I mean, this was Miramax, it was independent-ish. I wouldn't call it necessarily mainstream like Iron Man, but I think it still had a cinematic release that was well received.
It's still critical. I'm trying to think, like, I can't. It's hard to think. I think we also live in a different time now where satirical religious takes are kind of a lot more. I'd be really surprised to see people actively complaining in the way they did about like Life of Brian, because it's just not really listened to now in a world of like post South Park where it's like everything is satire, we can make fun of whatever we bloody want, and that's kind of just the view.
Dogma technically has, if you take Bethany as the protagonist and not Loki and Bartleby, a female protagonist.
It does, yeah. Again,
is that because we wanted to get preggers at the end a la Mary?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I didn't love that bit, and I'd forgotten that happened. It's not, like, it's so obvious that's what's going to happen from the beginning, because they say again and again that she can't have kids, and it's really established as a thing. It was a bit weird, because on one hand there's the sort of consent thing where it's like, yes, she wanted to get pregnant, but like not by surprise by God as a single mother. Like it wasn't established enough that she was like, oh God, I wish I could just have a child, you know, suddenly. So that was a bit of a shock. But it also was like, was it just me, or maybe I'm sensitive, like after like Avengers 2, where it's like, oh no, a woman can't have a child, oh God, her life is worthless. And even though the movie was trying not to say that's a thing, it still kind of fell into that thing of like, ooh, a woman unable to bear a child.
I know what you mean. I think, and this time as well, I've always taken it as like, she's always just wanted a family. Whether that's because that's how she perceives being normal, or whether that's where she wants to derive her happiness, regardless, that's what she seems to genuinely want.
It's a valid wish.
And at the very end, I think it really is a good thing that Alan Rickman comes up to her and he's like, you came through, you're going to be fine, I always knew you were going to be. And she's like, she has complete control, she's complete confidence and positive outlook on her life, where she's like, I know, I'm the last scion. Like, I have come to terms with who I am. Who I am is important. I have a responsibility. That's wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to going into the future. Now I know that God exists, my crisis of faith is over, I'm satisfied as a person. And then they're like, bonus,
you're having a baby.
Pregs.
Yeah, agreed.
And she's like, oh,
nice, yay, just what I wanted. Hopefully it won't be crucified age 30.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It felt like this is going to be me being really picky, because actually I do think it's a nice ending for our female protagonist, and what a like great way to end a movie. But like, should she not have learnt to be happy? Should she not have found worth in herself? Why is she now? And also, if she could always become pregnant with the child of God, then God was actively restricting her. And again, it falls back into that thing of, I guess she finds a purpose in her suffering, but it's like what she said in her monologue, where she was like, what about my plan? Is that not good enough for God? Why can't I do my thing? And
on the timeline that I wanted it
to
happen.
and with my control and my wishes, and
I guess you've got to take it that God isn't micromanaging every human life.
Well, but then
I don't
is
know.
Did she actively keep her childless so that this would occur?
And I was waiting for it this time round. I was like, hey, and here comes the bit where she gets pregnant, and for the first time I was like, wait, this is a selfish act from God, because God's like, cool, well, Bethany's only got, like, what, 50 more years?
Yeah, there's going to be more drama in
crisis.
60 years, so we're going to need your kid to step in.
Don't
worry, I'll make them unable to have kids and to angst about that for 20 years. And then maybe I'll bless them with the child if they do what I want them to do. If I was going to be super harsh about God, that's how I would have taken that finale. It was like, well done, you've done what I asked, so I guess I will infertile you, and I will refertile you.
I saw it as God, like, making plans for the future. Because then Bethany's even like, what? I know it's really arrogant of me to, like, ask about your grand plan, and, like, da-da-da-da-da, and God's like, haha, yeah. And, like, this time around, I really was like, God is just fucking putting it on a hard drive. It's just memory sticking the Jesus chromosome by impregnating Bethany. Now, Bethany kind of needs to know... Does this mean that Bethany is now super safe because she's carrying the son or daughter of God, and therefore God will never allow, like, a car to hit her or another heartbreak to happen? Or it really, when you start thinking about it too much, it really does get very overwhelmingly confusing and worrying.
I guess if I was going to be soft about the ending, it would be that she can now have faith that she's taken care of. But it just... This thing that happened exists in a world of, like, cruelty, and you can just get randomly murdered in a boardroom when you're just going about your job after cheating on your wife. And it was interesting because it's a kind thing to do for her, but then it makes you question, well, if you can do kind things at random for people and you're God, why have you been off playing skee ball when you should have been fucking...
I think it comes back to what Bartleby's saying. He gave them free will, he gave them choice, he just sort of made.
But it's not free will to be infertile. It's not free will to get shot in the face by Loki.
True, and she does ask, where was God when a little infection destroyed my uterus? Where was God when my husband left me for another woman? And... you know, where was God? Was he always playing skee ball? Was he watching and being like, I'll wait.
Eventually, I'll impregnate.
Maybe I won't. Because maybe, you know, I doubt God ever... Oh, but is he omniscient? Did he know he was
He is omniscient. We know that.
So how did he know he was going to be captured? So why did he go to skee ball that day?
Oh, shit.
Like...
We need a sequel. We need answers.
We need answers, Kevin. Oh, man. But, like, you know, it sparks conversation in a very good way.
It does. It's a good movie. And also, just when you're not thinking that hard about stuff, I think it's lovely the way it all comes together. It discusses free will. It brings up a lot of points. Like, that stuff's good. It just also has some solutions where you're like, but if that's a solution, then how come? But then I guess that again falls into, you know, like people praying when they're praying to be taken out of a period of suffering. When they eventually do, I'm sure many people feel that their prayers have been answered. But maybe down the line you question why you ever had to go through that if God was always willing to listen.
Very good
and
point.
On that note...
That's a bit of a mic drop on religion then. Just some food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get any of this from my religious studies class, so in the end I would say it was actually a really bad job of her. I'm not even sure we saw the ending. Upon watching it, I'm like, I'm not convinced that we saw the ending.
I can't imagine that you would have been... Like, no offense, but, like, allowed to watch something so...
I think they watched it over 2 sessions, and I saw maybe the first half or something, because I was, like, off ill the second half.
Sure.
Ill.
Skiving.
Hadn't done my textiles homework, so pretended to be on stayed home for that.
God. Yeah, so that was Dogma. I mean, great movie, holds up, some problems, issues, concerns, but... religion, what do you expect?
And you know, I think it should just say that in the credits in order to like cover everything. It had the disclaimer at the start, but it should at the end just have like a shrug emoji.
Like,
if only emojis had been properly like established by then, he could have done a little shrug emoji and everyone would be like, ah yes,
hey.
I get it.
I'm with you. But yeah, I'm glad I watched it. I don't think I need to rush back and watch it anytime soon. It was nice to return to, but I am older and wiser now. And the Bible is definitely set in the Middle East, so there is that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun movie. It made me think of Good Omens.
Which is always a plus.
Yeah.
It's always a good day when Good Omens is involved.
When I'm reviewing stuff, I just go off how much it reminded me of one of my favourite books. And if it didn't, it's a big fat 0. Lost in translation. I can't relate it to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell or Good Omens, so I'm out of here. 0.
I got nothing. Well, thank you for watching this with me. I'm glad that you enjoyed it and that you weren't like, oh dear God, what is this? That's From Our Past Network crossover tribute to Kevin Smith's early works. Boom.
Remembering me, discover and see all over the world. She's known as a girl to those who are free. The mind shall be key, forgotten as the past, 'cause history will last. God is a girl wherever you are. Do you believe it? Can you receive it? God is a girl, whatever you say. Do you believe it? Can you receive it? God is a girl, however you live. Do you believe it? Can you receive it? God is a girl, she's only a girl. Do you believe it? Can you receive it?
Hello everybody, I'm Adam.
I'm John.
And every week we are giving you a blast from our past.
We are the podcast that brings you full-on movie breakdowns, TV show reviews, album reviews, top 10s, and more, all from the things of our nostalgic past.
So please join us every single week on the Blast from Our Past podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. However you listen to podcasts, you can find us, and we would love to have you take a trip with us to the land of nostalgia.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
What's up, guys and gals, and everyone in between? This is Tess from Ongoing Comic Book Discussion Podcast, the place where a fun gal like me dives into the world of comic books one adventure at a time. Join me every Wednesday as I review a new comic book topic with a fun guest. I don't know if you know this, but comic books rule, dude.